The rain battered the roof of our modest suburban home, a relentless drumbeat that mirrored the chaos in my heart. I was 67, and life had just dealt me its cruelest blow. For 30 years, I'd poured my soul into Harper & Sons, the small accounting firm I'd built from nothing. It wasn't just a job, it was my legacy, a testament to the sacrifices I'd made for my family. But the world had changed. Automation crept in, clients dwindled, and the firm's debts piled higher than I could manage. Last week, the board me-owned colleagues voted to dissolve the company. I was out. Jobless. A failure. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the foreclosure notice in my trembling hands. The words blurred through tears I refused to let fall. My wife, Ellen, had passed 3 years ago, her cancer draining our savings long before it took her life. All I had left was our son, Michael, and this house, a house I could no longer afford. I'd raised Michael here, taught him to ride a bike in the driveway, cheered at his soccer games in the backyard. Now, at 32, he was a successful lawyer, married to a woman named Claire, with a daughter of their own. I thought he'd understand. I thought he'd help. Dad, we need to talk. Michael's voice cut through the silence as he stepped into the kitchen. His suit was crisp, his posture rigid. He looked every bit the man I'd hoped he'd become: polished, driven. But his eyes were cold, distant, like a stranger's. I forced a smile. Sure. Son, what's on your mind? He didn't sit. Instead, he leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Claire and I have been talking. About the house. About everything. My stomach twisted. The house. What about it? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Look, Dad, you can't keep living here. The bank's going to take it. You've got no income, no savings. Claire and we've decided you should move into the basement. The words hit like a punch. The basement. I echoed, my voice barely above a whisper. Our basement was a damp, unfinished space, used for storage and forgotten things. It wasn't a home. It wasn't a place for a man to live. It's temporary, Michael said quickly, avoiding my gaze. Just until you get back on your feet. Claire's pregnant again, and we need the main house for our family. You understand, right? I didn't understand. Not at all. This was my home. I'd paid off the mortgage years ago, only to take out a second one to cover Ellen's medical bills. I'd given Michael everything: college tuition, a down payment for his own house, even money for his wedding. And now, he was relegating me to the basement like an old piece of furniture. Michael, I said, my voice shaking, this is my home. I built this life for us. He flinched, but his resolve didn't waver. Things change. Dad, you can't expect us to carry you forever. The basement's got a bed, a bathroom. It's fine for now. I wanted to argue, to scream, but the weight of his words crushed me. I'd lost my job, my dignity, and now my place in my own home. That night, I packed a single suitcase and descended the creaky stairs to the basement. The air was musty, the walls cold. A single bulb flickered overhead, casting shadows across boxes of old photos and Ellen's clothes, still untouched since her death. I sat on the lumpy mattress, my heart heavy with betrayal. But there was something Michael didn't know, something no one knew. Tucked away in a safe deposit box at the bank was a life insurance policy Ellen had taken out years ago, naming me as the beneficiary. It was worth $3 million. I'd never told Michael, not because I didn't trust him, but because I wanted to protect him from the burden of that knowledge. Ellen had insisted we keep it secret, a safety net for emergencies. I'd never imagined the emergency would be my own son turning his back on me. As I lay in the dark, the rain still pounding above, I made a decision. I wouldn't tell Michael about the money. Not yet. If he thought I was broken, let him. I needed to see how far this betrayal would go. I needed to know who my son had become. The next morning, I woke to the sound of footsteps overhead. Michael's family, living in the home I'd built. Claire's laughter echoed through the floorboards, sharp and carefree. My granddaughter, Lily, giggled as she ran across the living room. I should have felt joy hearing her, but all I felt was a hollow ache. I was a ghost in my own house, banished to the shadows. I spent the day sorting through boxes, trying to make the basement livable. Among the clutter, I found an old photo of Michael and me at his high school graduation. He was grinning, his arms slung around my shoulders. I barely recognized that boy in the man upstairs. What had changed? Had I failed him somehow? Or had the world hardened him? By evening, Michael came downstairs, carrying a plate of leftovers. "Thought you might be hungry," he said, setting it on a rickety table. His tone was polite, but there was no warmth in it. "Thanks," I said, forcing civility. "How's Lily?" "She's fine." He hesitated, then added, "Claire's got a doctor's appointment tomorrow. We're thinking about moving into the master bedroom. It's bigger, better for the new baby." My heart sank. The master bedroom, Ellen's and mine. The room where we'd laughed, cried, planned our future. "You're moving me out completely." Then, I said quietly, "It's not like that, Dad." He snapped, defensive. "We're just being practical." Practical. The word stung. I nodded, saying nothing, and he left without another word. As the door closed, I felt a spark of resolve ignite within me. I wasn't done yet. The insurance policy was my leverage, my way out. But I wouldn't use it to beg for my place in this house. I'd use it to rebuild, to prove I wasn't the broken man Michael thought I was. I spent the next few days in a haze, adjusting to my new reality. The basement was cold, the walls damp with mildew. I set up a small space heater, hung a curtain for privacy, and tried to make it feel like something other than a prison. But every creak of the floorboards above reminded me of what I'd lost. Michael and Claire went about their lives, oblivious to the man below. Lily came down once, her wide eyes curious. "Grandpa, why are you living in the basement?" she asked, her voice innocent. I forced a smile. "Just for a little while, sweetheart. Grandpa's figuring things out." She nodded, satisfied, and ran back upstairs. Her visit was a fleeting warmth, a reminder of why I couldn't give up. I had to keep going for her, for Ellen's memory, for myself. One evening, as I sat hunched over a cup of instant coffee, I heard raised voices upstairs. Michael and Claire were arguing, their words muffled but sharp. I caught fragments, something about money, bills, the new baby. I realized then that Michael wasn't as secure as he seemed. His perfect life was cracking under pressure, just like mine had. For a moment, I felt a pang of sympathy, but it was quickly drowned out by the memory of his cold dismissal. I pulled out a notebook and began to plan. The insurance policy wasn't just money, it was power. I could use it to start over, to build something new. But first, I needed to understand Michael's motives. Was he ashamed of me? Greedy? Or just desperate? Like I'd been. I'd spent my life giving him everything. Now, I needed to take something back, me dignity. My purpose. As the rain continued to fall outside, I stared at the basement ceiling, listening to the life I'd lost. Tomorrow, I'd go to the bank. I'd retrieve the policy. and I'd decide how to play this hand I'd been dealt. Michael thought he'd buried me down here. He was wrong. The bank was a fortress of glass and steel, its polished floors reflecting the gray sky outside. I walked in, my old coat damp from the drizzle, feeling out of place among the suited tellers and humming computers. At 67, I'd never felt so small, but the weight of the safe deposit key in my pocket grounded me. It was my lifeline, my secret weapon. I hadn't touched the box in years. Not since Ellen and I placed the insurance policy inside, promising to keep it for a day we hoped would never come. The clerk, a young woman with a tight smile, led me to the vault. My hands trembled as I unlocked the box, revealing a single envelope, yellowed with age. Inside was the policy $3 million, payable upon Ellen's death. I'd collected it quietly after her passing, depositing the funds into a separate account I'd never told Michael about. It wasn't about secrecy. It was about protection. Ellen had always said, "Keep something for yourself, George, just in case." I hadn't understood her then. Now, I did. Back in the basement, I sat under the flickering bulb. The policy spread out before me. The numbers stared back. A fortune that could change everything. I could pay off the house, move out, start over. But the thought of leaving felt like surrender. This was my home, my memories. And yet, Michael's words echoed in my mind. "You can't expect us to carry you forever." The sting hadn't faded. I hid the policy in a locked box under the bed, my mind racing. I needed a plan, not just for the money, but for what came next. Michael's dismissal wasn't just about Spacey, it felt personal, like he'd erased me from his life. I needed to know why. Was it Claire's influence? Financial strain? Or had I missed something deeper? A fracture in our bond that had grown over years. The next morning, I ventured upstairs, hoping to talk to Michael. The kitchen was bright, filled with the smell of coffee and toast. Claire was there, scrolling on her phone, her pregnancy barely showing under her sweater. She glanced up, her smile polite but distant. "Morning, George. Need something?" "Just wanted to see Michael," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "He's at work," she replied, not looking up. "Big case. He's been stressed." I nodded, sensing the wall between us. Claire had always been reserved, but there was a new edge to her, a possessiveness over the house, over Michael. I retreated to the basement, feeling more like an intruder than ever. That afternoon, I decided to dig deeper. I pulled out my old laptop, its fan whirring like a tired engine, and searched for Michael's law firm. His profile was polished, boasting high-profile cases and a rising star status. But buried in local news articles, I found whispers of troubling a lawsuit against the firm, unpaid vendors, rumors of financial mismanagement. Michael's perfect life wasn't so perfect. Maybe his decision to move me downstairs wasn't just cruelty. Maybe it was desperation. I spent the next few days observing, listening. The arguments upstairs grew louder, more frequent. One night, I overheard Michael and Claire through the thin floorboards. "We can't keep this up," Claire said, her voice sharp. "The firm's bleeding money. And now the house payments. We need to sell." "Sell?" Michael's voice was strained. "This is Dad's house. He'll lose it." "He's already lost it," Claire snapped. "He's got nothing. Michael, we can't afford to prop him up." I clenched my fists, my blood boiling. Claire didn't know about the policy, but her words cut deeper than Michael's. She saw me as a burden, a deadweight. I wanted to storm upstairs, reveal the $3 million, and watch her jaw drop. But I held back. Knowledge was my power, and I wasn't ready to play that card. Instead, I focused on rebuilding. I contacted an old friend, Tom, who ran a small consulting firm. Tom was one of the few who'd stood by me when Harper and Sons collapsed. Over coffee at a diner, I shared my situation, not the policy, but the basement, the betrayal. Tom's face darkened. That's not right. George, you gave that boy everything. I know, I said, stirring my coffee. But I'm not done yet. I want to start over. Consulting. Maybe. Something small. Tom leaned forward, his eyes bright. You've still got it. George, your reputation's gold in this town. I can get you clients, small businesses, startups. You don't need much to start. For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope. I spent the next few days sketching out a business plan in the basement. The policy's existence a quiet reassurance. I could fund this myself. No loans. No begging. But I kept it hidden. Even from Tom. Trust was a fragile thing now. One evening, Lily slipped downstairs, clutching a drawing of a rainbow. For you, Grandpa, she said, her smile bright. I hugged her, my heart aching. She was the one pure thing in this mess, untouched by the bitterness upstairs. You like living down here? She asked, tilting her head. It's okay, I lied, tucking her drawing into a box. Grandpa's got big plans. After she left, I sat in the dark, the policy burning a hole in my thoughts. I could use it to buy back the house, to force Michael to see me as more than a failure. But that felt petty, small. I wanted something bigger, not just to reclaim my place, but to show Michael what I was capable of. I wanted him to regret underestimating me. The next morning, I called a lawyer, not Michael's firm, but an old colleague who owed me a favor. I needed to understand my rights to the house, the foreclosure process, and how the policy could be leveraged without revealing it too soon. The lawyer, Susan, was blunt. The bank's got you by the throat, George. But if you've got funds, any funds, you could negotiate a buyout before the foreclosure's final. How much? I asked, my voice steady. $500,000. Maybe less if you move fast. I thanked her and hung up. My mind made up. I'd use part of the policy to save the house. But not for Michael or Claire. For me. For Lily. For the life Ellen and I had built. But I'd do it quietly. Let Michael think I was still broken. I needed to see how far he'd go. How deep his loyalty or lack of it. As I lay in bed that night, the basement's damp chill seeping into my bones, I felt a strange calm. The policy was my ace. But it wasn't just about money. It was about reclaiming my worth, my place in the world. Michael had pushed me down here, thinking I'd stay buried. He was about to learn how wrong he was. The basement had become my war room, its dim corners now lined with notes, spreadsheets, and a calendar marked with deadlines. The insurance policy, still hidden under the bed, was my silent partner, fueling a plan that grew clearer each day. I wasn't just going to save the house, I was going to rebuild my life, piece by piece, and show Michael I was more than the broken man he'd cast aside. But I had to move carefully. One wrong step, and the power of my secret would be lost. I started small, meeting with Tom's contacts, local business owners who needed accounting help but couldn't afford big firms. My decades of experience gave me an edge. I could spot inefficiencies in their books with a glance, offer solutions they hadn't considered. Each meeting was a spark, reigniting the fire I thought I'd lost. I worked from a corner of the basement, my laptop glowing late into the night. The hum of the space heater, my only company. The money from these gigs was modest, but it was mine, earned on my terms. Upstairs, The tension in the house grew thicker. Michael and Claire's arguments were a nightly ritual now, their voices carrying through the floor. "We can't afford both houses," Claire said one evening, her tone sharp. "Your dad's place is a money pit. We sell it, or we're screwed." "It's not that simple," Michael shot back. "He's got nowhere else to go. Then he figures it out," Claire said coldly. "We're not a charity." I gripped my coffee mug, my knuckles white. Claire's words confirmed what I'd suspected. She saw me as a liability, not family. Michael's defense was weak, but it was there. Did he still care? Or was he just afraid of looking like the bad guy? I needed to know. I decided to test him. The next morning, I caught Michael before he left for work. He was in the kitchen, tying his tie, his face drawn with exhaustion. "Michael," I said, keeping my voice steady, "I've been thinking. Maybe I should move out. Find a cheap apartment." He froze, his hands pausing on the knot. "An apartment? Dad, you can't afford that." "I could try," I said, watching his face. "I don't want to be a burden." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "You're not. Look, just stay here for now. Okay. We'll figure it out." His words were kind, but his eyes were distant, conflicted. He didn't want me gone, but he didn't want me here either, not really. I nodded and let him leave, my mind churning. He wasn't ready to cut me off completely, but how long would that last? I met with Susan, the lawyer, again that afternoon. Over a stack of papers at her cluttered office, she outlined my options. "The bank's moving fast on the foreclosure," she said. "You've got maybe 6 weeks before they seize the house. If you've got the funds, you can buy it back outright. If not, you could negotiate a short sale, but that's riskier." "I've got funds," I said quietly. The policies weighed heavy in my thoughts. "But I need to do this without anyone knowing. Not my son, not his wife." Susan raised an eyebrow but didn't press. "We can set up a trust. Keep your name off the paperwork. It'll cost extra, but it's discreet." "Do it," I said. I gave her enough to start the process, using savings from my consulting gigs to avoid touching the policy yet. I wanted to keep that ace hidden until the right moment. Back in the basement, I worked late, drafting proposals for new clients. The money was coming in slowly, but it was enough to keep me afloat while I planned my next move. I also started researching Michael's firm. The deeper I dug, the worse it looked. The lawsuit I'd read about was gaining traction, with clients accusing the firm of overbilling. Michael wasn't named directly, but he was a partner. His reputation was on the line. I wondered if he'd hidden this from Claire, or if she was pushing him to sell the house to cover their losses. One night, Lily crept downstairs, her pajamas wrinkled, her eyes sleepy. "Grandpa, are you okay?" she asked, climbing onto the bed. "Mommy says you're sad." I forced a smile, tucking her hair behind her ear. "Grandpa's just working, sweetheart. Big plans, remember?" She nodded, hugging me tightly. "I don't want you to leave." Her words pierced me. I held her close, promising I wouldn't go anywhere. After she went back upstairs, I sat in the dark, my resolve hardening. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Lily, about giving her a grandfather she could be proud of. The next day, I took a risk. I called Michael's office, pretending to be a potential client. His assistant was chatty, revealing more than she should. The firm was struggling, laying off staff, scrambling to settle the lawsuit. Michael was working late every night, drowning in stress. I hung up, a mix of pity and anger swirling in my chest. He was in over his head, just like I'd been. But that didn't excuse what he'd done. I decided to confront him not with the policy, but with a test of character. That evening, I waited until Claire was out and knocked on his study door. He looked up, surprised, his desk littered with papers. "Dad, what's up?" "I heard about the firm," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "Sounds rough." His face tightened. "It's fine. Just business." "Michael, I've been there. Losing everything changes you. If you need help, I'm here." He laughed, a bitter sound. "Help? Dad, no offense, but you're living in my basement. What can you do?" The words cut, but I held his gaze. "More than you think." He looked away, guilt flickering in his eyes. "Just stay out of it. Okay. I've got this." I nodded and left, my heart heavy but my mind clear. He wasn't ready to see me as anything but a failure. That was fine. I'd show him in my own way, on my own terms. By the end of the week, Susan had set up the trust. I transferred a portion of the policy funds, $500,000, to cover the house buyout. The bank accepted, and the house was mine again, though Michael and Claire didn't know. I instructed Susan to keep it quiet, letting the foreclosure process play out publicly. I wanted Michael to think he'd won, to see how he'd act when he thought I was truly down. As I lay in the basement that night, the policy safe in its hiding place, I felt a shift. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was fighting. Michael had pushed me into the shadows, but I was building a way out. The next step was bigger, using the policy not just to save the house, but to start a new venture, something that would outshine his dismissal. I'd show him who I was. And when the time came, he'd see the truth, not just about the money, but about the man he'd underestimated. The basement had transformed from a prison into a command center. My desk, a salvaged piece of plywood balanced on crates, was covered with contracts, client lists, and financial projections. The consulting gigs were picking up, and with Tom's help, I'd secured 3 steady clients, small businesses desperate for someone with my expertise. Each dollar I earned felt like a brick in the foundation of my comeback. But the real power lay in the insurance policy, still hidden. Its $3 million, a quiet promise of what was possible. Upstairs, the house was a battlefield. Michael and Claire's arguments had escalated, their voices slicing through the floorboards like knives. "We're selling, Michael," Claire said one night, her tone final. "The bank's coming for it. We can't wait." "It's Dad's house," Michael replied, his voice low but firm. "We can't just. We can and we will." She cut him off. "We need the money. Your firm's a mess, and I'm not raising 2 kids in debt." I sat below, listening, my heart a tangle of anger and pity. Michael was fighting for me, in his way, but it was too little, too late. He'd already pushed me down here, stripped me of my place. I wondered if he'd fight harder if he knew about the policy. Part of me wanted to tell him, to see his reaction, but I held back. This was my game now, and I was playing it on my terms. I met with Tom again, this time at his office, a cozy space cluttered with photos of his grandkids. "You're doing great, George," he said, reviewing my client list. "But you're thinking bigger, aren't you?" I nodded, leaning forward. "I want to start a firm again. Not like Harper and Sons, something leaner. Focused on startups, nonprofits. There's a gap in the market, and I can fill it." Tom grinned. "That's the George the First no. You'll need capital, though. Equipment, office space, maybe a partner." "I've got capital," I said, my voice steady. I didn't mention the policy, but its presence loomed in my mind. I just need time. You've got it, Tom said. I'll spread the word. You're back, my friend. That night, I drafted a business plan, pouring my years of experience into every line. The policy would fund the startup costs and office, software, a small team. I'd call it Ellen's legacy, a tribute to the woman who'd given me this chance. But I wasn't ready to touch the money yet. I needed to build momentum, prove I could do this without it first. The policy was my safety net, not my crutch. The next morning, I overheard Michael on the phone. His voice strained. Yes, I understand the foreclosure's final next week. We'll figure it out. He didn't know I'd already bought the house through the trust, that the bank's threats were hollow. I let him sweat, let him think he was losing everything. It was cruel, maybe, but he'd been cruel first. I decided to push him further. That evening, I found him in the living room, staring at a stack of bills. Michael, I said, sitting across from him, I know about the foreclosure. I'm working on something consulting jobs. I might be able to help. He looked up, surprised, then skeptical. Help? Dad, you're in no position to help. I'm not as helpless as you think, I said, holding his gaze. Give me a chance. He shook his head, frustration flashing in his eyes. This isn't your problem anymore. Just stay out of it. His dismissal stung, but it fueled me. I retreated to the basement, my resolve stronger than ever. If he wouldn't see me as an equal, I'd make him. I spent the next few days meeting with potential clients, securing 2 more contracts. The money was small, but it was proof I wasn't done. I also met with Susan, finalizing the house buyout. The paperwork was complete. The house was mine, held in the trust. Michael and Claire could stay, but on my terms, when I was ready to reveal the truth. One afternoon, Lily came downstairs, her face pale. Grandpa, Mommy and Daddy are yelling again. They said we might have to move. I pulled her into a hug, my heart breaking. Don't worry, sweetheart. Grandpa's got this under control. She looked up, her eyes wide. Really? Really? I said, smiling. I couldn't tell her about the policy, but I could give her hope. After she left, I sat down, staring at the locked box under the bed. The time was coming to use it, but not yet. I needed one more piece to fall into place. That piece came unexpectedly. Late one night, I heard a knock on the basement door. It was Michael, his face haggard, his tie undone. Dad, he said, his voice breaking. I need to talk. I gestured to the chair, my heart pounding. Sit. He collapsed into it, rubbing his face. The firm's done. The lawsuit, we're settling, but it's wiped us out. Claire's furious. She wants to sell the house. Move away. I don't know what to do. For a moment, I saw the boy I'd raised, scared and lost. I wanted to tell him about the policy, to ease his pain, but I held back. I'm sorry, son, I said, but you've got to face this. You can't run. He looked at me, his eyes wet. I've screwed everything up, haven't I? I didn't answer. Instead, I said, you're not alone, Michael, but you need to figure out what matters to you. He nodded, standing slowly. I'm trying, Dad. I really am. After he left, I sat in the dark, the policy's weight heavier than ever. He was breaking, but so was his pride. Maybe there was hope for him yet. But I wasn't ready to forgive. Not until he saw me for who I was, not a burden, but a man who'd built a life, lost it, and was building it again. The next day, I signed a lease for a small office downtown, using my consulting earnings. Ellen's legacy was taking shape, and the policy would make it real. But I had one more move to make, a confrontation with Claire. She was the one pushing Michael, the one who saw me as nothing. I'd show her, and him, that I was far from finished. The office for Ellen's legacy was small, just a single room with a window overlooking a busy street. But it was mine. I'd furnished it with a second-hand desk, a chair, and a cheap coffee maker, all paid for with my consulting earnings. The insurance policy remained untouched, a silent force waiting for its moment. Each client I signed, each contract I sealed, was a step toward proving I wasn't the man Michael and Claire thought I was. But the house, now secretly mine through the trust, was the heart of my plan. It was time to face Claire, to draw a line in the sand. I waited for a moment when Michael was at work. Claire was in the kitchen, sorting through mail, her face tight with stress. I climbed the stairs, my heart pounding, but my resolve firm. "Claire," I said, standing in the doorway, "we need to talk." She looked up, startled, then frowned. "George, what's this about?" I sat across from her, my hand steady. "I know you want to sell the house. I know you think I'm a burden. But this is my home, and I'm not going anywhere." Her eyes narrowed, a mix of surprise and irritation. "George, we've been over this. The bank's taking the house. You can't stop it." "I already have," I said, my voice calm but unyielding. I didn't mention the policy or the trust, but I let the weight of my words hang in the air. "I've been working, Claire. I'm not as helpless as you think." She laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Working? In the basement? George, you're dreaming. You've got nothing." Her words were meant to cut, but they only fueled me. "You're wrong," I said, standing. "And you'll see that soon enough. But I want you to know something. This house, this family, it's more than money to me. You might not understand that, but Michael will." I turned and left, her stunned silence following me. I'd planted a seed, one that would grow when I revealed the truth. But first, I needed to solidify Ellen's legacy. I spent the next few days at the office, meeting clients, refining my business plan. The policy's funds were ready to launch the firm, fully hiring a small team, investing in software, marketing to nonprofits. I'd start with $1 million, keeping the rest for emergencies, for Lily's future. One evening, Michael came to the basement, his face pale. "Dad, Claire told me you talked to her. What's going on?" I looked at him, searching for the boy I'd raised. "I'm taking my life back, Michael. I'm not the failure you think I am." He flinched, guilt flashing in his eyes. "I never said you were a failure." "You didn't have to," I replied. "You put me down here. But I'm not staying." He rubbed his face, his voice cracking. "Dad, I'm trying to keep everything together. The firm, Claire, the kids, it's too much." "I know," I said, softening. "But you don't fix it by pushing me out. We're family. We face it together." He nodded, tears in his eyes, but didn't speak. I let him go, knowing he needed time. The next day, I finalized the launch of Ellen's legacy, transferring $1 million from the policy to a business account. I hired 2 young accountants, both hungry for a chance to prove themselves. The office buzzed with energy, a stark contrast to the basement's gloom. But the house remained a battleground. Claire was pushing harder to sell, unaware the foreclosure was a sham. I let her believe it. Let Michael sweat, waiting for the right moment. That moment came a week later, when the bank sent a final notice staged, per my instructions through Susan. Michael called me upstairs, his face ashen. "Dad, it's over. The house is gone." I looked at him, my heart heavy but steady. "It's not gone, Michael. I bought it." His jaw dropped. "What? How?" "I had resources," I said, keeping the policy vague. "The house isn't a trust. It's mine. You and Claire can stay, but things are going to change." He stared at me, a mix of shock and shame. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I needed to know who you were," I said. "You pushed me down here, Michael. You made me feel like nothing. But I'm not nothing. I never was." He broke down then, sobbing, apologies spilling out. "I'm sorry, Dad. I was scared. I didn't know what to do." I let him talk, let him unload the weight of his mistakes. I didn't forgive him not yet, but I saw a glimmer of the sun I'd raised. Claire, though, was another story. She stormed in, furious, demanding answers. "You had money this whole time," she shouted, "and you let us think we were losing everything." "I let you show me who you are," I said, my voice cold. "And I'm not impressed." She stormed out, leaving Michael to face me alone. We talked for hours, peeling back years of distance. He admitted the firm's collapse, Claire's pressure, his own shame at how he'd treated me. I listened, my heart softening but not breaking. He had to earn my trust back. The next day, I moved my things out of the basement, back to the guest room. The house was mine, but it wasn't home yet. Ellen's legacy was thriving, my clients growing, my team excited. The policy had given me the means, but my work, my will, had given me purpose. I wasn't just saving the house, I was saving myself. Ellen's legacy opened its doors officially 6 months later, a small but bustling firm in the heart of town. My team of young accountants worked with a passion I hadn't seen in years, their energy reminding me of my early days at Harper & Sons. We serve startups, nonprofits, and small businesses, offering affordable expertise with a personal touch. The $1 million I'd invested from the insurance policy had given us a strong start, modern software, a sleek website, and a marketing push that was turning heads. But the real success was mine. I'd rebuilt my life, not with money, but with grit and purpose. The house was mine again, the trust ensuring it stayed that way. Michael and Claire remained, but the dynamic had shifted. Claire kept her distance, her resentment palpable but unspoken. Michael, though, was trying. He'd taken a new job at a smaller firm, one with less prestige but more stability. He came to me often, asking for advice, seeking forgiveness in small ways. I gave him both, cautiously. Trust was a bridge we were rebuilding, one conversation at a time. Lily was my light. She'd run to me after school, her drawings now pinned to my office walls. "Grandpa, are you famous now?" she asked one day, her eyes wide as she saw my name on the firm's sign. I laughed, ruffling her hair. "Not famous, sweetheart. Just doing what I love." The policy's remaining $2 million sat in a secure account, earmarked for Lily's future college, travel, whatever she dreamed of. I told Michael about it. Finally, during a quiet dinner. His face had paled, then reddened with shame. "You had that all along," he said, his voice low. "And I treated you like I was nothing." I finished, not unkindly. "But I'm not, Michael. And neither are you. We both lost our way, but we're finding it again. He nodded, tears in his eyes. I'm proud of you, Dad. I should have said it sooner. Those words meant more than the money ever could. They didn't erase the pain, but they healed a piece of it. I forgave him. Not fully, but enough to move forward. Claire was harder. She never apologized. Her pride too rigid. I let her be, focusing on Michael and Lily, on the life I was building. One evening, I sat in my office, the city lights glinting through the window. I opened a drawer and pulled out a photo of Ellen, taken years ago on our anniversary. She was smiling, her eyes full of love. You were right, I whispered. I needed something for myself. Ellen's legacy wasn't just a firm, it was a promise kept, a testament to the life we'd built together. The basement was a memory now, a reminder of how far I'd come. I'd been pushed down, dismissed, but I'd risen. Not with vengeance, but with purpose. The policy had been my tool, but my heart, my will, had been my strength. I looked out at the street below, alive with people chasing their own dreams. I was one of them again. Not a ghost, not a burden, but a man with a future. Michael would learn from this. I hoped. Lily would grow up knowing her grandfather never gave up. And Ellen, wherever she was, would be proud. As I locked the office and headed home, the rain had stopped, the sky clear. I walked with a lightness I hadn't felt in years. The basement was behind me. The world was ahead.